Welcome everybody back to our Mindful Moments with the Sharper Moist Foundation. Today, of course, I'm joined again with Dr. Tequilla Hill, and we have Maximilian Cole who is a special education administrator at a large school district. Welcome, Mr. Cole. How are you today?
I'm fantastic. Thank you, Dr. Moise. Appreciate it. Dr. Hill, how are you?
Wow. Good to have you.
Thank you. Thanks for
Yes.
the invite.
Thank you for joining us. So let's just dive right in. What brought you to your chosen profession?
Oh, wow. It was, I don't want to call it serendipity. I want to say it was a accident, a intentional accident at that. So originally I was going to be an architectural engineer. And what happened with that was, I was doing speech and debate at the same time, and both sides of the brain were just being tortured every weekend. So, I'm preparing for these debates. And then at the same time, as soon as the debate is over, here I am having to prepare for a calculus test come Monday. And so I couldn't do all that. I'm a social butterfly. So at some point, something had to give. So my grades started to slip on that architectural engineering side. And I said, well, let me go ahead and try to find something that might be a little bit more towards my passion, because I didn't want to give up speech and debate. So my father was telling me that education is the key. And of course, I had a lot of educators in my family. My background is my grandmother was one of the educators at the high school that I ended up teaching at, which is funny, about 40 years ago. And, it kind of led me down that pathway where it would be just temporary. And so after undergrad, I joined Teach for America. Teach for America afforded me the opportunity to teach in a large public school district. And I stayed at my school a lot longer than most Teach for America core members. But the reason why was because I enjoyed the community. I enjoyed the students. And of course, I felt like I was making a difference. And that's the most important part, is where you know that you're making a difference. And I kid you not, one of my greatest moments, or at least something that just warmed my heart, was a student said, Mr. Cole, I'm going to be a math teacher. I said, no, why you want to be a math teacher? He said, because you're a math teacher. I said, oh. I had to step back. And of course, I don't know if he was trying to be nice to me because he wanted to get an A out the class, but nonetheless, hey, you got both. So made my heart smile. And of course, for that particular lesson, he got an A. But I thought it was great. And this was a young Black male. And so you can just imagine how that made me feel, how that made him feel, and of course, how that made his classmates feel. Because if they weren't thinking about it then, they were thinking about it afterwards. And I just didn't realize how much of an impact I was having. And so after 6 years in the classroom, I realized that I wanted to make a bigger impact on the district at large. And so I applied to become a special education administrator for the district. And they allowed me the opportunity to obtain this position. And I'm having a good time ever since. This is actually, I'm celebrating my 1-year anniversary in this new role. And thank you. And I'm having a good time. And I want to say I'm being successful. There's still some stuff I need to learn, but for the most part, I am having a similar impact. And I look forward to just continuing to move in a stronger type of way.
Wow. Max, thank you so much for sharing that. That was such a cool beginning, or like connecting to your why. But I'm curious about your experience as a Black man navigating this field. What has been the mindset or the drive that you have adopted to manage both the challenges and sweet victories in your role?
Right. And it's interesting that you mentioned that. When I think about the challenges, for me, and I got to be honest with you, I gotta speak my piece. I did not grow up or go to a public school like the students I was teaching. So for me, my type of mindset initially was militant. I kid you not. I came in. I mean, when you hear about urban areas, when you hear about teaching Black and brown children, even if you are Black and brown, and if you're not from that environment, if you're not from that neighborhood, you're coming in and just trying to command attention, to command the room. And so that's what I did for the first Uh, I wanted to say month, but I don't think it lasted that long. I think it was just maybe 2 weeks. I came in, they showed me real quickly, this ain't gonna work, player. They let me know real quickly, this ain't gonna work. You ain't gonna talk to me like that. And so,
and what grade level was that?
Say it one more time. Oh, high school.
Oh, high school.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Now they almost grown then.
These are miniature adults. Like, you're not talking. My mama don't talk to me like, well, so, and of course, just trying to figure out ways to build those. That's when I realized relationships were going to be the key. I realized that I didn't have to come in trying to bark orders. Instead, I had to come in and build a community. And it took me a while to understand that, of course, as a first-year teacher, they don't teach you the part about building communities, right off the jump. They want you to make sure that your instruction is crispy, right? Of course, you're talking to somebody who spent 4 years in undergrad trying to, perfect the craft. So you would think that person would be prepared on that part. But nonetheless, it was just trying to build relationships with my students. And it, as the years progressed, it had got to a point where I didn't even have to tell a student or correct a student. It was, if it wasn't their peers, it was their older brother, it was a cousin, and it may have even been their parents, because the area in which I served, it was very communal and everybody knew everybody. And if they liked you, and they made sure the neighborhood, the community would take care of you. And if they didn't like you, please don't walk home at night, right? It's one of those situations. But that was one of the major challenges, was figuring out how to build a relationship, how to not be a pushover, but also how to stay firm in my profession, to make sure that they took me seriously, but they knew that we can laugh and joke and you can tell me some things and I could be a mentor or some assistance. So that was one of the major challenges. But just kind of moving forward, after I felt like I started to get it, the successes started to be shown. I started to see students who would adhere to the commitments that we as a team, as a classroom, had presented, had put forward. I started to see students who weren't even in my class wanting to be in my class and coming to me with questions and concerns. And even furthermore, I started to see my growth and also the interest of my administration, where it was, Max, we need you to do this project. And the question was why? It's like, because the students respect you and they want you to. They actually ask for you specifically. So it was one of those situations where after the relationship was built, after the challenges were, hurdled over, of course, I was able to find home. It felt like home coming into my school building. And of course, the only reason why I had to leave, or felt like I had to leave, was because the students weren't coming back. We had a lot of students who were going to different schools. We had a declining population. And of course, when that happens, that's when teams and administration start to get fractured. And of course, the team dynamic isn't there anymore. And when you're the one who's carrying the mantle all by yourself, it gets a little daunting and of course, exhausting.
Yeah. Max, thank you so much for bringing up a point that I believe Dr. Moise and I talked to our previous guest about, and being flexible in how you do things, not why, and how you built that ecosystem, you built trust, you built safety with those kids, and then you had a different response for them. So that is really cool. And of course, the role of like building ecosystems and relationships, which is really awesome. Thank you for sharing that.
No worries. And of course, I think one of the most important pieces to that is it doesn't matter, where you came from, or of course, what you look like. A lot of people say, in order to teach Black men, you have to be a Black man. That's not true. But you have to be able to build that relationship. You have to be able to listen to them, to show them respect, and of course, to ask for respect in return, or not really ask for it, but of course, demand it, right? And when you have the respect factor going along, and when you have that team dynamic, man, it just changes the game as far as education, and I would even argue in any organization or business.
I'm glad that you mentioned, I feel like I've had a similar experience in being in education. When I was a first year teacher, I walked in and I was like, what is going on? You had high schoolers, I had fourth graders, and I thought it was a little bit more scarier, right? And it was like, everyone came in, was like, you got to rule with an iron fist. I didn't smile with the kids until like December.
That's what they tell you.
Yeah, that's what they tell you. Like, you can't be nice, you can't do this, you can't do that. But like you said, I think the most important part was about building the relationship with your students, right? Like they know, my students always knew that I cared about them, I loved them, but at the same time, I didn't take no mess, right? Like they knew that
Right.
we were serious, we had work to do, there was time to joke, there was time to laugh. I remember I had a student who he said a joke and he made me laugh, and oh my God, that was his thing all year round. And he went around and told everybody, I made Miss Moise laugh. I made her laugh. And I was just like, oh my God. But again, when you build those relationships with those students, like it means the world, because you see that they act differently with you. They're more responsive to things, and you get to go beyond just the curriculum and what's in the classroom and kind of teach them a bit more about life itself than just reading, math, science, you know, all of that other stuff. So I think that I'm glad that you brought up that point, that it's about building a relationship with your students and making them feel like you care about them and making them feel respected and that their voice matters.
Right. And one thing I want to add, so you got to be yourself, because being militant, that's not me. I like to laugh and joke all the time. And so when I started to, again, when that relationship factor happened, I started to become more like myself. You know, I'm coming in, I'm dancing, you know, playing a little music. And of course, the kids responded to that. I think one of my biggest concerns was I didn't want to be a pushover too early, but at the same time, you lose your personality, your identity. And I think that's one of the things that's very unique about the education system is, you know, just like any actor or any actress, everybody has a different personality, everybody has different strengths, and everybody's going to bring something new to their classroom, or something unique and individualized to their classroom. And I've seen different educators who may rule with an iron fist, but just like you, Dr. Moise, when they do laugh, it's a big thing. It's a big thing. And the kids see the humanity in that. And it helps them want to stay on task, but to try to get you to smile at the same time. So it's just being yourself and knowing what you're willing to put up with, and some stuff you like, nah, bro.
Yeah, that's very true. That is very true. You do have to be yourself, because the kids see through it. They see right through it when you're being fake and phony with them.
Thanks.
Yeah, they do. So what keeps you passionately committed to your role? Although, you know, like you said before, there are challenges that you have to face.
I was gonna say money, but that's
a first for education.
It's, you know what? It's not high on the totem pole, but it's also not low. But
hey, keep it real. Hey, it's important. It's a factor. Yes, it is.
Yeah.
You know what, I think the idea of synergy, the idea that when I'm rocking and rolling with a dynamic team, which I have right now, I think my team is dynamic. I've really been able to learn so much from my team members who have been doing my role for quite some years. We only have one new person who's on the team, but they had also been a district representative. So they're familiar with the role that we currently have. But being able to really latch on to them and ask them questions, to in some cases observe them while they're given a professional development, and to see best practices on how we can coach and of course support our schools, that has been one of the, you know, the fuels to my fire, you know, the pushing drive. And that's what keeps me going is how much more can we raise the bar, is what I keep asking myself when I wake up in the morning. You know, I want to be productive. I want to make sure that I'm working with a team that's able to exponentially help a school or help a district or help our district grow. And so that's what kind of keeps me going. It's the idea that it's not only fun, that we not only get paid, but we're also able to make a strong and productive gain with our students, especially our Black and Brown students, which of course, as we're all familiar with, in years past, they've kind of been teeter-tottering on the cusp of educational excellence. So I want to make sure that we push them in the right area, in the right zone, and of course, to do the right things.
So how do you personally stay well mentally and physically to kind of help buffer the highs and the lows of your role?
It's funny you mentioned that because the past couple months has simply been that. So I'll be honest with you all. When I first started my position as a special education administrator, I was like, man, this is easy, man. We were having a good time. And this is all virtual, by the way. I came in during the COVID pandemic, so I was having a good time. Like, oh man, this is cool. I can do this in my sleep. Then we came back in person. And when I tell you, I'm like, whoa, it's a lot more driving, a lot more concerns when kids are back in school. So to really make sure that I stay mentally and physically up to par, first and foremost, I have to be organized. That's my it's my pet peeve when I'm not organized. I think that's one of the things that drives me crazy. So of course, I've mentioned my colleagues and how synergy plays a role, and of course, being able to latch on to them and their expertise. I had a meeting with one of my colleagues 2 Fridays ago, in fact, and I asked him. I said, "Well, he talks about this thing called a paper route." I said, "What's your paper route?" And that's just kind of his schedule of how he does it for the week. And he walked me through what he does. He does school visits 2 days. He'll do professional developments 2 days, and of course, have his office hours and his office works on that final day Friday. And I said that's amazing. And the reason why I had to say that is because I was just going to schools and walking in, and I built relationships, so nobody was rejecting me from coming into their school building. But I'm coming in like, okay, what's going on? And sometimes it would be, oh, we need this. It's like, ugh. And then other days it would be, oh no, it's cool, just have a seat, hang out. And so, of course, that was the area in which I said, well, maybe I'm not being productive here. If y'all have it handled, I can go somewhere else. But to know that paper route, to know what it looks like, and to be able to organize myself, I think has really helped take a lot of stress off. But in addition to that, definitely meditation, daily meditation, it is key. And of course, I got another coworker who, man, he stays in the gym every day. I'm trying to follow his lead. So I'm like, man, we in the gym every day then. So those three things: organization, of course, making sure I meditate, and workouts, gym time. Those are ways in which I stay stress free.
Awesome. Okay, Max, we see how you're elevating the mind and the body at the same time.
Indeed,
All
indeed.
right. Okay. You get an A. Okay. I'm curious, Max, because I love how your path to leading to be a leader, like you've been in the classroom and now you're in a position that you can affect more systemic change in the
Mhm.
schools that you get to manage. I'm curious, how does your role directly impact students? Because you're not a teacher anymore, you have a higher role. So I'm curious how your role impacts students directly.
Right. So the good part about my role is that we are able to deliver professional developments, coaching, which is going to be huge, and of course, getting to talk to other administrators on how there are more effective ways and strategies in which they can implement procedures, and of course, different uh, ways for educators to connect with their students. For those who are diverse learners or in the special education department. And so, for example, coaching, what I normally do is I'll usually reach out at the beginning of the school year. Who are your new diverse learning educators? Are they seasoned, or when I say seasoned, are they new to just your school, or are they new to the district? If they're new to the district, this is going to be a priority number one. So just kind of getting them acclimated to what the classroom setting should look like. Of course, making sure classroom management is key, because again, when I think about educators, I'm thinking to myself, that instructional piece, I shouldn't be concerned about that. And you shouldn't be concerned about that. You've already proven that you're smart because, you're an educator, right? But that classroom management thing, man, when I tell you, it is for me, and I think for every educator, it should be, priority number one, because you can't teach if the classroom is in disarray. And so coming into classrooms and making sure that I'm coaching teachers on the classroom management piece. And then afterwards, we'll talk about instructional practices. Those are ways in which, as long as that educator is getting that knowledge, they're able to directly impact the students. And of course, the best part about it is when that educator becomes a seasoned veteran, they're able to pass on that knowledge to the next person, and so on and so forth. Of course, if you have an effective school procedure, and of course, if you have effective educational mentoring going on. And so the professional developments come in, and that's the second part of my role, is where we have an opportunity to then talk to the whole group, right? And so I like the edutain, as you could probably already guess. I like to edutain. And of course, I feel like people are either flattering me or I might be doing a good job. Somebody mentioned to me, they reached out and said, hey, which professional development are you putting on for this particular PD day? And I said, oh, well, unfortunately, I won't be doing anything. And he's like, well, let me know the next time because I enjoyed your professional development. I said, okay, great, wonderful. And so, but the best part about the professional developments is they allow for me to not only connect with those educators, but to hear those concerns and to be able to directly help them with strategies that will, again, directly impact the students in the classroom. And I think that that's the most important part is, sometimes, and of course, I had one PD that I didn't like, and I wish I can get it back because I feel like I was just talking to them. I didn't individualize it for that school, and that's my fault, only because I got some different directives from my director. But because of the way things are moving, you're able to individualize your professional developments for that school. And so going forward now, I definitely want to make sure that I'm able to hear those concerns for that particular school, especially if you have some students who may need to have a different method or for you to have a different method for them as an educator. And of course, man, execute it, execute. I come in and observe, see if we can tweak it if necessary, and bada bing. And then lastly, when we talk about the administration, when I have conversations with them, they're able to, again, similar educators tell me exactly what they're looking for. But this one is not just the direct impact per se, it's more of procedures. What needs to happen to make sure that all of my students who are diverse learners are taken care of? Or for our special education department, what are they lacking? What are they missing? What trainings can you provide, Mr. Cole, in order to make sure that they are on pace with the other educators at other schools who are doing a phenomenal job and raising the bar for their diverse learners? So being able to do some coaching, professional developments, and of course, talk to administrators is a way in which I'm able to directly impact students at a larger scale.
Thank you. And Max, just because I always want to stay on top of what is appropriate, I've never heard that term, diverse learners. So is that a term that we should be using? Because I love that. It feels so much more inclusive. Oh my gosh, thank you.
Yes.
That was
Yeah,
my
and Dr. Hill, you are absolutely welcome. And so this is, and of course, I'm not the one that wants to take on the responsibility to make sure everybody is saying it, but of course, this is what we say in our field, diverse learners. And of course, when you really think about it, we're all diverse learners. We all have different ways in which we learn. But as it relates to students who have special needs, we want to make sure that it is not used to label a student. Instead, it's used to help educators understand, hey, this is a diverse learner, and this is the way that you'll be able to reach him, her, or they.
Yeah. And Max, even hearing you saying that, like self-disclosure, when I was like in kindergarten, first grade back in the 80s, they weren't catering to diverse learners, right? So
Right.
I was put in for math, I was put in special education until I had a young South Asian teacher say, well, she doesn't really belong here. You just have to learn. She doesn't learn. She's tactile, like bring the blocks out for her and she can go back integrate in her other class because she's actually advanced. So if it wasn't for that teacher, I probably would have had a very different life path because I was told that I wasn't smart in math because I wasn't learning how everyone else was learning. So a teacher like y'all actually changed my life because I was put back into the class I was supposed to be in because someone understood how I actually learned and was able to educate my mother on how I learned. So moving forward, I understood that I was tactile and experiential in my learning, which changed my life. So I appreciate teachers like y'all, administrators like y'all, because I would have fell behind.
Definitely. We want to make gains for our students in our district too. Of course. Thank you for sharing. And it's funny you mentioned that because for me, and I could speak my truth as well. I went to Catholic schools until I got to college. And I remember vividly that there were 3 different reading groups. And I started off in this one reading group and there's like 4 kids there. Then I went to another reading group and there was a lot more kids. Then I finally went to the more advanced reading group, and it didn't dawn on me till I got older to where I said they thought they thought I couldn't read. So I say that only to say that I'm not sure if it was because of my scores. I'm not a great test taker, but I'm competent, or if it was Not sure. What I do
Well, you
know
know
is that
what? I'm glad you brought that up because you both are leading into to the next piece that I want to talk about, because we know that historically speaking, our Black and brown kids have always been labeled and identified as special education,
Without
right?
assessment, Dr. Moise,
With,
without assessment, no one
listen, without
asking no
assessment,
question, just
without questions,
mhm.
saying that, hey, this kid possibly has ADHD, as if they were an MD.
Or perhaps they're maybe gifted, or they're bored, or have they eaten? Can they see? Have their eyes and hearing been tested? No one asks us those questions.
Exactly. So, and when I was an administrator in the school building, I had to have those conversations with teachers all of the time about, are they really special education? Like, what are we doing? Like, I need some data. I need you to give me some data to prove this. So we have to go through that MTSS RTI process, so that we can figure out, which is the multi-tiered system of support or response to intervention, before they can even actually get to that special education piece, so that we can make sure that we're not mislabeling any children, because your classroom management, like Max referenced, is not up to par, right? Or you just don't understand how your student learns. So one of the PDs I used to do with teachers at the beginning of the year was, hey, you need to figure out how your students learn. How do they receive information? Because if you don't know that, you're going to start thinking that this kid doesn't get this information, when in fact, you're not teaching them in the way in which that they learn. So when you teach a lesson, you need to make sure your lesson hits your diverse learners. That means everybody, because we all learn differently. But Max, I wanted to ask you, do you feel like, in your opinion, that this is still happening? Our kids are still getting mislabeled. Or is it not happening possibly as much?
It's not, to me, and from my vantage point, it doesn't seem to be happening that as much, because there's a lot, the eyes are open, as they say, a lot of educators are woke. And so a lot more intervention is happening, a lot more, and the beauty of it is we have Black administrators now, right? Who are pushing the envelope in our district, who are asking these questions. And so, and even better, you have people who were mislabeled as children, who are now adults, who are now in the education field, who are fighting back and saying, hey, wait a second, you all did this to me, but you won't do this to this child.
That's right.
Right. And so I would argue it's getting better. Is it still happening? Sure it is. And the bad part about it is, it depends on where you live, what school you go to, your geographical location, and sometimes your social economic status. And that's the sad part about it, is or even if your parent is aware of the educational system at large. So, and oftentimes you will have white parents who are familiar with the educational system, either because they have somebody who works in it or whatever the case may be, but they'll be quick to, turn to a helicopter parent, and that's when all the resources and interventions happen. Whereas you have Black parents, Black and brown parents, who sometimes, didn't have a really good experience in education, or, when they were kids. And for them, it's as long as y'all got them for 8 hours a day and they're doing fine, we're cool here, right? And so, but to your point, it's getting better. There is still work. There is still lots of work, and that's where I come in at.
How do we fix it though? How do we fix the systemic issue of where we know that a lot of our Black and brown families, right? They're like you said, they send the kids off to school. Don't call me if they ain't dying, But it's like, it's not the fact that they don't want to be involved. Sometimes it's hard for them to be involved because you're doing multiple jobs, trying to do this, trying to do that, trying to raise the family, single mother, single dad, whatever the dynamics may be, that they're not able, or they are simply not aware of the way that the system actually works. So I tell a lot of people, most of the time, if you're not in the education system, you're unaware of how it actually works and how the policies and procedures go. So how do we fix that in trying to not have any of our kids fall through the cracks?
Right, and that's a big question. It's one that we are continuously trying to wrap our minds around. But I would argue, from my opinion, my perspective, I think, just kind of continue to push that knowledge on the parents, especially at the earliest age possible, uh, for their children. As soon as they walk into the classroom, for pre-K or for kindergarten, whatever the case may be, you have to be able to load them and front load them with all the knowledge necessary for their children. What it should look like, what the classroom dynamics should look like, and educators at those stages should be very, very in tune with the parents, with the community, with making sure that not only are they really understanding the students who they're teaching, but also able to figure out the strategies. But I think one of the biggest things where the disconnect happens, where we're not able, we're just beating a dead horse in some respects, is the resources, right? And of course, I mentioned this earlier. Depending on it's really sad. Depending on where you live, depending on your socioeconomic status, it's either means you're going to have a very phenomenal education, a average education, or a subpar education. And it's terrible. It's terrible to think about. And even when we're thinking about charter schools, and of course, charter schools bring a different experience. And for some families, they have saved lives of students educationally. But even then, when we think about that, it's sometimes it's a lottery. Sometimes you have to just be lucky that day, right? And so, and just thinking about those resources, right? You have a lot of schools that want to do good, that have good educators there, that have passionate administrators. But the unfortunate part is, this is what we know we want to do, but we just don't have the money to do it. Yeah. Unless we try to fundraise. But all this fundraising, there's a lot of red tape depending on your district. And if it's charter, it also depends on how much you need. And of course, if it goes through the board of directors. So, all these things happen. And I would argue the resource factor is something that needs to be augmented in order for it to be truly fixed for all students. Again, you go to a certain neighborhood, it's like, man, y'all got everything's here. Then you go to another one, it's like, man, y'all have nothing. Yeah. Absolutely nothing.
Yeah. And Max, hearing you say that brings up another thing, that when I was a professor in mental health programs, the last time I taught, like 4 years ago, which I thought was really interesting, all therapists have to take a child and adolescent family therapy course. Mm-hmm. And built in the course is dealing with educational systems, mm-hmm. and working alongside administrators and teachers because they need support. And do you know how to advocate for a 504 plan or IEP? Do you know how to work with larger systems? Do you know how to educate a parent about it, and also how to implement it? So before, when I was a professor, that was never spoken about. Even when I was ESC family therapist in the school system, we weren't taught about a 504 plan or IEP. Like, the teachers taught me about that and was like, can you please ask for this, because I'm trying to get the parent to ask for it, but they can't even read themselves. So that gave me joy that they were arming the therapists with the knowledge to support and educate and give the parents the language to go to you all and say, hey, I think my child needs a 504 plan or IEP plan, and for these reasons. So I love this idea of front loading them with this information, like giving them the information to empower them.
Right. And continuously doing it at every level, every grade level. And I stay optimistic. I have to. I mean, it's just, it warms my heart. But I think as years progress, we're going to see a good change where parents are a lot more empowered, a lot more aware, and of course, able to advocate for their child at the earliest of ages. So, and I'm thinking about our Black and brown parents, of course, because we know that our counterparts, most of them, right? Not all, but most of them, they're mostly aware. And of course, that's when we'll start to see the equality for the educational guidelines, and of course, educational strategies and whatnot.
Thank you, Max.
Yeah, and I think that, and back to one of your points, I feel like, as far as resources as are concerned with the different schools, and you go to a different area, everything is different. Like for myself, I didn't even go to my neighborhood school. I had to go to school an hour and a half away in order to get a better education.
Me too.
In a quote magnet program, so that I could tell that the resources from my neighborhood school to the resources that were at the school that I attended were totally different, and the socioeconomic status was different. It was a overall white Hispanic neighborhood that I went to middle school and high school with, and in the Black neighborhood that we stayed in, we didn't have those kind of resources, right? And I think fundamentally the system is broken, right? The system is broken, period. The way that schools are funded, the way that they give the money to the schools, it's broken. And I think that, and I'm a public school girl, I'm saying I'm a product of a public school system, worked in public schools, worked in charter schools. So I've seen both sides of it. And I think the whole system is broken. And it needs to be fixed where parents are able to make that decision for their students without them dismantling the quote public education system. Because charter isn't the answer all of the time. Public isn't the answer. The neighborhood school isn't the answer all of the time. And I think that I always tell people it's whatever school that's doing right by your child, right? Whatever school is the fit for your child, that's where you should bring your child, because just because it's down the street doesn't mean that it's going to be a good fit for your kid. They may have issues with teachers, administration turnover, et cetera, et cetera. But I think that the way that schools are funded, the way that the money is given to the different schools is that system is broken, and it needs to be fixed in order for there to be that true equitable educational system.
Well, essentially, from my understanding, it's the tax dollars in that neighborhood. And if you got a lot of people who are either moving out, who are renting, or in some cases, you got a lot of dilapidated buildings, that school that's in that neighborhood, it's not going to receive much of anything. And so, and that's the sad part about it, is you still have children who live in that neighborhood, and they have to be educated. They have to be prepared to help their community at some point. But with underfunded schools, lack of resources, it's just not going to happen. But something that you did bring up, and shameless plug, please forgive me. It's my cousin's book. His name is Dr. Worth Hayes. He teaches at Tuskegee University, professor. And so his book was called Schools of Our Own. And so one of the most important parts of that particular book is it talks about how, and he talks about Chicago, how for decades, Black families have been struggling. And I emphasize the word struggling with where to send their children. And of course, this is just Chicago, but I know that it's happening all across the United States of America, where you want to send your kids to a good school, but in some cases you don't have the money, right? And so if you send them to a neighborhood school, it's not going to be what you're looking for. But if you put your money together and start your own school in a sense of a charter, then it's, you have to continuously fund and, whatever the case may be, and it might only stay open for 3 to 5 years. And then you think about the big private schools where, man, it's another mortgage essentially. So it becomes the frustrating aspect where this is the conundrum that Black families are going through, and arguably Black and brown families, right? But you got other of our counterparts who, man, if they want to go to school and it's a public school and it's down the street, it'll be fine because they have all the bells and whistles, and of course then some, in order to educate their children. So I just found that interesting that it's still going on. And he talks about how this had started with the Great Migration, but to this day in 2021, it's still a struggle for Black families to find the proper education for their children.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because I think that it's what did you say the title of the book again was? Schools of Our Own. Schools of Our Own. There you go. That's what we just need to do.
Yep. Hello.
But this is the struggle, ladies. This is the struggle. We so in Hyde Park, there's a Jewish school, and I'm not sure if it goes all the way to high school, but I know it's for elementary. And so it's well funded, and we know the reason why, because they collectively put their money together. Essentially, it's just difficult for Black families to put their money together consistently to make sure that in one specific area or one specific school, it's getting all these resources funded for a Black school, right? And he talks about that, where it might do well in the 4th year, but by the 5th year, 6th year, families are, financially strapped. Somebody may have lost their job, or somebody may want to move out because, the neighborhood in which they're in is bad. So they move into a different city. It becomes so many issues that it's hard to continue due to all the constant change. So I'm just very curious to have a school of our own. I'm behind y'all 100%. Let's do it. But the question becomes, how do we make it sustainable where this isn't just for 3 to 5 years, this is for a lifetime. Now that's big, a lifetime.
Yeah, as I hear us talking, and also the journey that we've been embarking on is like, when I think about giving people choices, right, educating them, and talking about like investing their resources, people don't realize, yes, money is a currency, but having a thinking brain and having choices is a different type of currency. So when you educate people to say, if you donate $100 every month to the Sharper Moise Foundation, this is what you get. And if everyone, whatever you can, like, this is what you get. If you understand like systemically how this impacts stuff, if it's $5, whatever. And then also when you think about other Black and brown people who want to be a part of the solution, there's where my optimism and my hope lies, is that if we get enough people like us together, understanding how we all have power and impact, then those schools will last a lifetime. You know what I'm saying? So I'm optimistic, like you, Max, and Dr. Moise, and that if we can just educate people, give them knowledge, give them information, that perhaps that they can invest their currency on things such as education. You know.
Right. This was just supposed to be an interview. Y'all sound like we putting together a think
Listen,
tank
it's a TED. We put a whole TED talk on accident.
and a board of directors already.
But Max, as and we've had so many light bulbs in my brain are going off right now. But I'm also very, very curious from your perspective. Many times in special education, students are often ostracized because of their disability. How can teachers and parents and even community members foster a culture of inclusion? I think all of us are probably in the same age group that back in the day, the
Yeah.
special needs kids, they were, it was like, off in the cut, and it was very embarrassing, right? Or if someone had whatever issue, they had to be pulled out of class, and everyone knows because you have dyslexia. Like, it was not kind. Kids are not always kind, right? So I guess I'm
Right.
curious, how can we foster inclusion so that we can buffer that?
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned that, because I'm understanding more so the dynamics that my team is putting together, which I think is great, and there are things that are happening in different schools. So for some, they have, and I don't want to mess up the name, but it's called the buddy system or the buddy program. And essentially, what happens is you pair a student who has a disability. In some cases, it might be a student who may have cerebral palsy, or even furthermore, it just might be a paraplegic. But you partner them with a student who's in a general education classroom, who has signed up for the buddy program, who understands what this will mean as far as the mentorship, the friendship, and of course, to be able to assist when necessary. And so now that you have that buddy system and that partnership, you're able to have a student who, in the general education setting, is able to speak to their peers about their peers who may have a disability, and to kind of educate them on that. And even furthermore, kind of have a cool factor, like, oh no, it's cool to pair up, it's cool to sit at lunch with these wonderful students, right? And so that's happening at certain schools. There are other opportunities where teachers are collaborating and making sure that students with disabilities are in classrooms with students without disabilities. And that's across the board. They call it the least restrictive environment. So the LRE grid is what traditionally happens. So they make sure that not only should students be moving past that grid. So for example, if you're traditionally in a resource or self-contained classroom, the goal is to get you out of there so you go into the general education environment. Even if you have a paraprofessional or an assistant helping you in that classroom, it still allows you the chance to be with your peers, to have access to the entire curriculum, and of course to meet educators that may inspire you, and for you to showcase that you can be challenged, you can be successful and a classroom that is not just self-contained or resource. So there are tons of strategies that are happening, and they're happening in different schools, that happening district-wide, and I would argue across the nation. So that's going on as I'm thinking about it at the high school level. Now, when we're thinking about the middle school and elementary school level, the same thing, if it's not already happening, I'm sure that it could be replicated, and of course, allow for children to, again, grow knowledge, because that's the biggest thing is you have to have knowledge and understanding for you to be able to respect something. And so when you're able to understand why your peer needs to maybe step out for the room, or why your peer needs to go to Miss Johnson's class for this particular class period, you know, you're able to not make fun of it, but really be of assistance and help when necessary.
Thank you, Max.
And I think too, because at the elementary, because a lot of my experience has been at the elementary and the middle school level, where you know, you kind of make sure that within that school building or within that classroom that you're celebrating all of your students, right? Because like I always tell kids, if this student has an IEP specifically for reading, they can be a math genius, right? So that doesn't mean that, you know, everything about them is bad. And then you talk to the students too about what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are, because, and let them know that it's okay, because we all have strengths, we all have weaknesses. Just because you have this particular designation doesn't mean that it's something bad. It just means that you need additional resources that we're going to help you with, so that the students don't feel bad. But I think when I was a classroom teacher, I always made sure that all of the students felt like they were part of a community, and that they know that it was like a no, we don't tease, we don't make fun of anybody because of anything within the classroom, because, you know, we all have strengths and we all have weaknesses, and we need to celebrate the diversity of each and every one of the people that were in that classroom.
Right, agreed. That community aspect is huge. And another thing that I wanted to bring up, I was talking to an administrator about 2 years ago, and I can't think of the name of the program that is being, I guess, piloted, if that's the best term to put it. But there is an opportunity where, again, we're all diverse learners. And so for some students, they, you know, like you said, they may be a math whiz, but struggle in language arts. And so there is a program where, let's say the classroom has transitioned from math to language arts. Now you have this particular student who, again, is struggling in language arts, who may have gotten their math stuff done, but during that math class, they were able to focus on language arts as soon as they got that particular lesson finished. And so instead of having just the 50-minute session of language arts, they would have an augmented session because they finished their math early. So even during that math class, they're focused on language arts and continuing into the class because that's their struggle area, whereas math is their expertise. So I can't remember the name of the pilot program. I can't remember the name of what it does, but I mean, excuse me, the actual name for it, but what it does, it allows for students to focus on their areas of concern. I don't want to say weaknesses, but areas of concern. And so that they're able to expand their understanding, but to continue to boost up their strengths. So I think it's really good. And I'm waiting for it to come out within the district, just so that it's helpful for students. So just something to put on the radar, which I think would be helpful.
Yeah, that's a very good thing, and I've seen that done. I can't remember the name of that also, but
yeah,
you know, when you go to different places, they call it the same thing. They call it different things, as we love to do in education.
Same thing, different name. You're like, come on, can we stay consistent?
Exactly, exactly. You touched upon this a little bit earlier, but in your opinion, what is the importance of having Black men in the education field at various levels?
You want me to tell you the truth or a lie?
The truth.
The truth, exactly.
This is one of those times I would love to tell the truth. I usually lie on Tuesdays, but today is Sunday, so I'm
don't lie, that's right.
Anywho, so it's major. It's major. And I say that because when you think about what African American males are lacking, even at home, it's a strong Black male in front of them. You know, one who respects them, one who is going to help them develop, one is going to mentor and nurture them. And so if you don't have it at home, you come into the school building and you don't have it there, it's and we can see why the state of Black men, young Black men, is what it is. Because you never had somebody say, hey, that's not smart. Hey, we ain't doing that. Or hey, this is what you need to focus on. And so again, you don't have to be a Black male in order to reach Black males, but it means a lot when you do, as a young male, that you have Black males in front of you. I'll be honest with you all. I didn't have a Black teacher actually until freshman year of high school.
I don't think I had a Black teacher, female or male, until maybe the end of high school.
Yeah.
Maybe one. It was one. And they were not Black, probably not Black identifying. We'll put it like that. I'm trying to be politically correct. It was clear, because you know what I'm talking. Y'all know what I'm talking about, because when you know, you know.
Oh yeah.
It didn't have anything to do with any of the Black students, because they had a chance to mentor us and they did not. So that's why I knew that there was a Black face, but they weren't Black.
And you know what? It's funny you mentioned that, because it's almost a given. If I'm teaching at an all-white school and a Black kid walks in, I'm all of a sudden gravitating towards that kid, saying, "Oh, come here, you're just like me. I want to make sure that you become the smartest person in this room right now." And when you don't get that, even if they identify as Black, you're almost like, "Whoa, wait a minute, I'm in the wrong." and so, but even to your point, Dr. Hill, the Black teacher who I had, the first one, my freshman year, it was almost like she didn't give me that pull. It was like, you treat every other student like, maybe you shouldn't, because I can learn a lot more from you if you. But that was my first, and I think my only in high school, because she taught computer science. And then I went on to college, went to Tennessee State University, where almost every teacher was Black. So that was a shit. But a big shit. Everybody with power and authority was Black. What's going on here? So it was just an amazing sight to see. But to that point, it's important. It's super important, because, like I said earlier, that kid told me, I want to be a math teacher because you're one. Not only did it make me feel good, but it made them feel good to know that this guy is being respected in a discipline that is challenging, and he's able to do it successfully, which means that I can do it because he looks like me. And so and that's really what resonates to those students is, oh, now I have another image of success, because they're looking at sports, they're looking at music, they're looking at art and whatever. And so they already have their minds made up on who they could be.
Yeah. Or the dude on the corner, or the people on the corner doing what they do. That's it. That's about it.
Because
I was trying to be optimistic.
Made feel good though.
Mm-hmm.
I was trying to remain optimistic, but you are correct.
That's a role model. That's not always a positive one, but it is a role model.
And you know what it is, and this is the thing: they're a role model because they are providing, because they have finances. Although it's liquid in some cases, they have finances, and
proximity, because that's what they see every day consistently. Right. Yeah.
Right, and they're protected in some cases, right? We won't go into that, but they show strength and confidence, and so yes, but that is another person that I could be. But wait a minute, so now we have teacher. Wow, right? So you add that to the list, and it's helpful. It is helpful, and the more that you have in a school building, especially when it comes to Black males, and I'll tell you this, we have conversations all the time in my district meetings about the African American Initiative, right? And what's funny is the African American Initiative was something that was talked about when I was an undergrad and I was student body president, and they were like, well, we need to focus on the Black. So everywhere you go, it's a Black male initiative that needs to be focused on. And it's like, people are making money off of creating strategies for a Black male initiative. And I find it interesting because there's so many resources. Well, not enough apparently, but there are resources, there's strategies, there's conversations and meetings going in to helping to lift up our brothers. But in some cases, just simply putting an older brother in the environment to make sure that they're doing well and to mentor, and for most cases, just to congratulate them, It was I had been to a conference, and one thing about the conference that somebody had shared was they knew of an ex-NFL football player, and one of the things that he just really enjoyed was the crowd cheering for him. That was it. That's all. And so just imagine coming to the classroom, people are cheering for you when you do something right in the classroom. One of the reasons why Black men exit out the classroom environment is because when they do something wrong, it's immediate disapproval. And even when they do something right, it's you're not being acknowledged. So that, it's if I'm not being, getting any adulation here, why stick around? So that's one thing that was noticed. But to add more brothers to help, to administer, to mentor, that's going to be the key aspect.
From your perspective, Max, like, what do you think needs to happen to attract more Black men to the
The field
field?
of education. Ooh. You want me to tell you the truth?
Don't lie. Don't tell the truth. Keep telling us
It's a safe space. This is a safe space.
Oh Lord. Like every time I hear that, then I find out I'm joking. But no, in all seriousness, what needs to happen? There needs to be, the financial piece is huge. And the respect factor is going to come, because oftentimes the field of education as an educator is not respected, at least in our nation, right? You go to Asia, you're an educator, it's a whole nother dynamic. But here it's, oh, you're just a teacher, right? And a lot of it has to do with the financial aspect of it, right? You got a lot of teachers who are barely making ends meet. And I'm talking about males and females, where you have to get out as a second job. I didn't realize that in Oklahoma, I think the average teacher was 45,000. And of course, the different dynamic, or maybe it's less. I'm not 100% sure, but 45,000. And they had stated that a lot of educators in Oklahoma have a second job, which I can't imagine, because you're exhausted after 3. I mean, for both of you all have been in the classroom. After 3, you're exhausted, or 4, whenever you start, and to do another job, and you might have a family. That's a lot, right? So to raise the minimum wage of educators is one part, and then to have that vertical mobility to allow Black males to know, hey, you're starting a 4th grade classroom, but if you decide, not that you need to, but if you decide to become a dean, this is what package looks like. Or if you decide to become an assistant principal, this is what the package looks like. This is what the road there. And so what I can tell you is that those conversations are happening. You're having a lot more Black males who are thinking about it, right? Are they making the actual transition? Are they actually enrolling and being a part of the profession? I don't have the data on that right now, but they're thinking about it. And it's starting to become a good trend, but we need a bigger wave, right? We need a much larger wave. And of course, I think the best part about it is you need a front person. You need somebody to be able to say how happy, that's number one, because success doesn't equate to happiness. Like, we all know that part, but how happy they are, how financially endowed they are. Of course, you don't have to be a millionaire, but be able to have enough to say that I'm able to provide for my family. And of course, to let them know, like, there is upward mobility if you deem it, your calling. So those 3 things, I would say, are starting points. Again, not the be all end all, but it's something that I think would get a lot more African-American males, especially at the high school level and college level, interested in thinking about becoming an educator.
So, in that same vein, what words of wisdom would you offer an aspiring Black male educator? So if someone comes to you, hey, Max, I'm thinking about, coming into education. What truths will you tell them about coming into the world of education?
Man. And it's funny, I had a conversation with a young man about a month ago about this. And the first thing was, it is it's a profound feeling when you know you are making a difference, especially to your little brothers. And that's kind of how we look at them. They are our little brothers. Even though some of them may be bigger than us, it's like, you're my little brother.
Oh yeah.
Right. But to know that you are making a difference, to stick with them. And one of the things I also want to add, looping. If you're able to loop with your students, and for those who don't know what looping is, it's just being able to go from third grade teaching that same class to fourth grade, fifth grade. You're teaching the same class all the way through their commencement. And so I think that's big. It's important to see the profound effect. So my advice is, of course, if you want to make an impact, if you're tired of seeing young brothers throw their lives away and turn down a pathway that we all know is not only the antithesis of success, but also a burden on your soul, this is the way to help turn it around. It's the way to get kids off the streets. It's a way to get them in a building. It's a way to get them to focus on different activities that have nothing to do with drugs, gangs, or violence.
Edifying. That's right. That's right,
Exactly.
Max.
Exactly. It is a profound feeling to know that, hey, this kid, when I first met him, man, he was coming in the classroom talking this and that. Now, this particular kid is not only going to graduate, not only has a scholarship to go to one or two colleges of their choice, but has made a positive impact on the school environment. And of course, was one of my leaders in the classroom. That changes the game. And it makes you know that, all right, cool, we got one out,
That's
maybe
right.
two. How many more can I get? Because men are competitive. Men are competitive. We're like, all right, man, look, we got 2 out. Let's see if we can get 4 out. All right, next year we're gonna get 10 out. So that's my my spiel, is that to make a huge difference, this is the vocation for you.
Wow, you just gave me a TED talk again. I feel like I should tip you, Max. Um, so for me, in close, I feel like we beat you up with questions, sir, but you roll with me and Dr. Moise. I appreciate you.
Beat
Um,
me up, man. Look, I'm ready for
yeah.
more. What y'all think?
We all know the power of words because
Mm.
thoughts are things and words have power. And Linda and I are both really into affirmation and mantra. Would you please share your favorite quote or saying or affirmation with our audience? Like, what is your jam? What is your the thing that you live by, or that that is a mantra for you?
Let me tell you something. When we talk about quotes and affirmations, I have a bucket. I have a bucket of them. Like it's just a list that just rolling through my brain. But I'll tell you one that I was thinking about yesterday, because it's holding true. At least right now, I got this new house, and I'm tired of adding money to it and doing fixtures. But this
It's
is
an
the quote.
investment.
It's an investment, but it's also teaching me to be patient and to continue to go through the motions of being productive, and making sure you continue to add, continue to add. But it's also aligned to life, where if the moment you stop your workout, the moment you stop your meditation, the moment you stop your routine when it comes to work, you fall off. And the quote I'm thinking about is from Nelson Mandela, and it's real simple. It always seems impossible until it's done. And it's
Woo!
true. And it's just so true. And just thinking about the violence in the city of Chicago, people are like, how are we going to be able to stop this? Yada yada yada. And it seems impossible to stop until it's done. Until it's done. And so it's just, we have to continue to stay forthright in our doing. We have to continue to trust our convictions, and of course, to be able to continuously create routines and procedures that will be helpful, and to not divvy from that. So yeah.
Thank you, brother. Yes. I'm gonna add that quote to my bucket list. I'm just gonna
Yep.
insert in my bucket list of quotes. Appreciate you, sir.
You're welcome. You're absolutely welcome.
I'm glad that you said that quote, because I was thinking about that the other day, and that kind of brings on the journey that we've embarked on at Sharp and Moise Foundation,
Yes.
to wanting to stop that violence and protect our kids, and make sure that they have an opportunity to become the best adults that we know that they can be, but trying to give them those resources, right? And building our own, right? Building our own school for them in order for them to get out of a system that seems to not have worked for them. So I like that quote that you said, it seems impossible until it's done. So I'm gonna hold on to that one. But definitely thanking you for hanging out with us today. But I want to close with this question for you. What do you want your legacy to be at the end of the day? What do you want your legacy?
Oh my goodness. Ooh. I gotta get back to y'all on that one. This will be the one question.
You better email that. Listen, I'm gonna hold you to it, Max. You better get an email response to add what your legacy is, because I'm not going to forget.
Oh my good. Okay, I got you, Doc. But and you know what? Cause look, I've been a good sport. I've answered all your questions.
Yes, you have. Yes, you have.
But this is the one, and like I told you, this was an intentional accident to go into the field of education. So for me, I haven't even thought about that. I really haven't thought about what I want my legacy for the field of education. Of course, that, you know, at any given moment, I can move on to a different role, different organization, business, whatever the case may be. But I haven't thought about that. And I feel as though that right now I've done well by inspiring a group of students at my former school. But with this new role, the question becomes, what's my legacy going to be here, and then overarching. So let me get back to you on that one.
Yeah. You know
Dr.
what?
Hill gonna let you off the hook, but I'm not.
I'm gonna be soft with you. This is why, brother. I'm gonna be soft
because y'all came at me what I do.
Therapist in me is gonna say you are living your legacy right now, and it's unfolding. So you don't have the language for it yet. Okay, so I'm gonna let it ride. But okay, but you all right? Okay.
You know what? I'll let Dr. Hill be nice then, because I wasn't going to be that nice. Because I was going to say that
I'm listening.
That's not necessarily your legacy for work, right? Legacy in life, right? Your legacy in life work, that purpose that drives you every day to do what you want to do and the things that you want to do in the future. At the end of the day, when when you're 80 years old, 90 years old, wherever you may be, and you're sitting in your rocking chair looking over your life, you say, wow, I did what? I accomplished what? This is what I'm leaving behind for the people whose lives I touched.
Oh my goodness. Well, this is the thing, that if I can let you all in, I have a few other what do they call it? Phases in my life that I want to endeavor. And so one might be public service. I don't like politics. I call it public service. Another might be in media. Another might be in the financial institution. So I couldn't tell you, because right now everything is up in the air, and I feel as though that I'm in a position where I could probably go with one, maybe two, but not the other one. So, I don't want to get ahead of myself. I want to take it day by day, month by month, year by year. So we'll see. I don't know, but okay. Just to satisfy Dr. Moise, because I see she's not happy. And I'll keep it real general, real abstract. It's just to make sure that I helped people. I mean, just want to make sure that I help people, that I help to elevate my brothers and sisters. I mean, I think that's important. I elevate my brothers and sisters. And of course, really, I love people. So if everybody's able to elevate themselves, mind, body, and soul, and I had a help in that, I've done my job.
Good legacy.
Beautiful legacy. See, it was there.
You did that. Yep.
Well, thank you so much, Max, for joining us today and putting up with myself and Tequila. We enjoyed having you, and I'm pretty sure Tequila is going to look for that email from you, and she will keep you together. But we truly appreciate you joining us today.
Yes, it's been a joy, Max. Like, you've definitely inspired me, and I know that you'll inspire all of our viewers. So thank you so much for blessing us with your time and your energy.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. I had fun. I had fun. So, they say you're not working when you're having fun. Hey, having fun.
That's how I feel, Max.